3, 2. Hello, Bao. Hello, everyone, and thank you for joining us for this conversation, which is part of the digital showcase of work created for the Lliwiau, an online poetry showcase. The result of a virtual residency and workshop programme that brought together 10 female or non-binary poets and artists from Vietnam and Wales over a period of 3 months. The project was initiated by HR Press and Literature Across Frontiers and supported by the British Council. I'm Nikki Beach, one of the coordinators of the project, and I'm joined by 3 of the participants, Rae, Uyên and Sara, to discuss colour in their work. Now, a little bit about how colour became part of the project. If you remember back to our first workshop, we had a little ice-breaking exercise. Everybody had to write down 5 words, and then from those 5 we found 3 themes and broke up into breakout rooms to discuss colour, sound and tempura, as I remember correctly. And then we had some kind of homework that was set after the first workshop to translate yourself by recording a short soundscape or video or capturing images of your surroundings. So we're going to look first at Sara's poem. And can you tell us, Sara, how all that led to your poem?
Okay, yeah, well, I live in a really rural setting, so there was the sort of soundscapes and colorscapes. And so I'd had a bit of a panic thinking, oh, I don't know what I'm going to be able to present. But then I'd recorded my porridge bubbling, and I recorded nuts and things. And then not the next day, but on the Monday, so it's 2 days after the workshop, I had an audiology appointment. And I usually just drive to the hospital, park up, go in. It's all very functional, just get it done and come out and try and be as emotionless as possible, because it's quite a difficult thing. You're having to face what's going on with my hearing and talking about it and things. But on this occasion, I thought, well, I'm going out of the house to a different environment. And straight away, as soon as I switched on my creative beam, I noticed there was blue and red everywhere, and I've never noticed it before. And the hospital is just completely blue and red. If you look at the accident and emergency parts, and then everything throughout the hospital, it's like it's all themed. And then I went into my audiology appointment, and I was very excited about this, and I was noticing that it was the same in the room as well. And I noticed that the headphones that they put on me to do the hearing test, I was like, oh gosh, they're blue and red as well. And the audiologist said, well, yeah, we have red for right. They always have red for the right ear, and then blue for the left ear, which doesn't make quite as much sense. But then there were other things in there, then I was really excited, and I said, oh, even the sort of thing that looks like a big shell that actually blasts the sound at me. I was thinking, oh gosh, that's blue as well. And he went, yeah, actually, I think that's just an accident, a sort of coincidence, because they're not always blue. His just happens to be blue. And from there, I started looking around the room and noticing things I've never noticed there before. Like there's this big quote by Maya Angelou. Someone had handwritten notes, and that was up on the shelf next to the only bits of sort of yellow that were there. All the box files seemed to be yellow. So as you can see here, then I went back through the hospital and I was photographing. There did seem to be some yellows and some purple. And then, of course, there was this rainbow that seemed to buck the whole idea. But that's the only rainbow there. That's obviously a lot of the hospitals who have adopted this image now. But as you can see there, you have on the screen, you have the graph of my hearing loss. And then the other one is where they do the test, where they actually put the wires into my ears and put the sound, so they can try and decide what the prescription will be. So then they put the prescription line over the top. So it's even blue and red on the screen. Everything is blue and red there. And then I happened to see this one purple wheelchair, so I took a photo of that because they seem to be purple. I really liked the quote by Maya Angelou being there because, for one thing, obviously, it's a hospital environment and everything's very clinical. And then there's this lovely sort of philosophical quote being there. And also there's a lovely symmetry because if you see the film Invictus, you discover that Nelson Mandela had a poem on his wall that was written by William Ernest Henley, who was a disabled man. He was writing about self-reliance and his unconquerable soul. And Nelson Mandela found strength and self-reliance messages and things in that poem. And I thought there was a lovely then symmetry here that Maya Angelou's poem is being inspiring in this room, which is essentially is about disability, because we're talking about losing hearing and such. So I just thought that was a really nice thing that bound it all together, really. So yeah, I made that little collage, and then I wrote the poem out of it. So quite a successful.
You'll be able to see or hear how you've taken all the colours there and reflected it in your poem, if you'd like to read that for us.
Yes, I'll read it first in Welsh and then I'll read it in English. So, Lliwiau'n ymweliad o dioleg. Glas a coch yw lliwiau'r ysbyty yn tirlenwi'r stafell ymgynghori ar adeilad tu hwnt. Glas a coch, coch a glas, plys dde, plys chwith, marwolaeth a pherygl. A, just oherwydd. Graffiau o golled a presgripsiwn, a hyd yn oed y teclyn sy'n bwrw synau amlieithog tuag ataf, I weld beth a glywed y tro hyn yn ystafell las hefo'r dyfyniad gan Maya Angelou. Ma yna arwyddion melyn hefyd, a box files a chydeiriau Olwyn Borffor, yn hyd ar enfys o galonau yn pefrio gobaith. So I'll read it in English. Audiology visit colorscapes. Blue and red are the colours which dominate the hospital, permeating the consultation room and the building beyond. Blue and red, red and blue, right ear, left ear, death and danger, and just because. Graphs of loss and prescription, and even the contraption which fires multilingual sounds at me to see what I can hear, this time in the blue room with a quote by Maya Angelou. Though there are yellow signs too, and box files and purple wheelchairs, along with a single heart rhinestone effect, envis of hopefulness.
Diolch, Sara. Diolch yn fawr. Sara, your poem then, that ended with the word envis, which is a rainbow in Welsh. Yes. The rainbow was used in Wales and the UK during the first coronavirus lockdown and still is, as a symbol of hope and thanks for the National Health Service. When was it used in Vietnam as well?
Yes, so the rainbow or, the pride flag, we use it too for queer communities in here because it's a pretty global representation of the LGBTQ plus community. So we use that here too.
Was it used during the coronavirus pandemic? Is it there? Is it
not really. Yeah, I think our relationship, like queer representation in Vietnam, is still like a debating topic because same-sex marriage is not legalized yet, but we have a strong community going on here, and overall the culture people are starting to be more accepting, but law-wise it's not really gay friendly yet. So we're pushing it every time they have a new, every 4 years they change the political board, so we try to push for that every 4 years, but for now it has not happened yet.
No. Is there hope though?
Yes. I'm still waiting for that every time, and I know that my friends, people working in nonprofit organization, are trying to push for that to happen. Yes, so yeah. we are hoping.
I remember we discussed this in that first little breakout room, the colours group, and discussing the symbolism of different colours in Wales and in Vietnam. And Rae and Uyên, you were both part of that group, and you created your own project about colour, around colour. So we'll have a look at the publication you made together, and I'll just say I was very pleased to be able to translate one Uyên poem with a bit of backwards and forwards discussion. So if I share this poem, which I translated, and I'm going to try and pronounce properly the words that are included in it, then you can talk about how you got together and how you managed to.
Yes. So, Rae, do you want to start, or should I?
Nikki, do you want to read first?
Yeah, I'll read the Welsh translation first.
Oh, okay.
You can talk about the poem. Just let someone in. So, iaith gwlad dieithr. Yn tingwiaeth, rwy'n darganfod drws sang ting zyng gwaelod llyn tim anadl sam. Dwylo a thraed cyn yr enw. Gwair myglyd yn cwrlo rownd y croen. Iaith dieithryn yn drifftio. Iaith gyfarwydd yn drifftio. Eiliadau o sain. Y fi chan tiwm. Y fi zan zi. Agoraf y llygaid. Yn ddi-hyd am yr hen dderwen. Yn llifo, amser yn llifo. Yn tywallt i lawr fy nghysgod sych. Cam yn gorchuddio fy ngwallt den. Ar fy mrest, mae darn o bren. E-N. English not. Yng nghanol gardd pomelo hesp. Ti, fi, gwelwn ein gilydd, yn syllu ar ein gilydd. Syllu. Tu ôl yng nghefn, adeilad a oliadau bant. Uwch dy ben, ser di'r ifedi yn hongian. Rwy'n camu, cama fi, cam fi. They say, come eat the vang pomelos have been harvested. Maen nhw'n dweud, dere ma i fwyta'r pomelo eiddfed maen nhw wedi cynaeafu. Maen nhw'n dweud, dere ma i fwyta'r pomelo eiddfed. Maen nhw'n dweud, dere ma i fwyta. Maen nhw'n dweud, dere ma. Dweud eto, maen nhw'n dweud. Roedd gwaed ar y boncyff, draen ar fy nwylo. Pengliniau wedi plygu yn fib stecs. Tir, enw. Eiddo, treftadaeth, mynwent. Ansoddair, brown. Sam. Deisfiswr, adferf, gwaedd, pentref a foddwyd. Cerddfaist, to, arlwy bren yn anrheg, barddoniaeth a mynedd, yn rhwbio bol cynnes, tudalen o ymynedd, yn o i mi, pilipala, bwm bwm bai, pilipala, bwm bwm bai, porffor, oren, melyn, gwyn, gwyrdd, yn ysgwyd. So, when I was translating the poem, obviously it's full of colour and it's full of Welsh references. So tell me a bit about it.
So the reason that Rae and I got together is because both of us have a personal investment as a writer within the language that is colour. So I think that's why we started talking to each other, and then we were discussing about the common themes that we are trying to do research in, or want to know from each other, like language and translation and colonialism. And so during my writing process, because we were sending each other a lot of materials, I'm sending materials about Vietnam and Rae is sending me materials about Welsh. So for my research process before writing the poem, I was reading a lot of articles and watching documentaries about Welsh and listening to Welsh music. And so a lot of the inspiration and images comes from personal association with the materials. So for example, some of the colors, like the image about the standing in the garden with the orange that is coming from the sunlight, that is from Rae's video, because she sent me a video of her house. And I saw an oak tree in there, and the sunlight happens to be orange. So it pours that orange color in the oak tree, and that's why that line is in there. And so a lot of personal reference also from my story, and the gray color also has a significant impact in the poem, because it reference to the mineral wealth and exploitation in Wales, because I watched Rae sent me a lot of documentaries about that. For example, the Arborfen disaster. There was a lot of articles about that. And also my dad works in the coal mining industry as well. And Rae was telling me about the gray air that she could see from her house because they were doing some construction work. And so, yeah.
It's amazing to see all the familiar things from Wales in your poem. There's Tryweryn is there. Yeah, it's fantastic. And so how did you go about writing the collage? The publication showed some photos. I'll just share my screen again and show you this, and maybe you can talk about how it worked. We can just see a collage being made here. Rae, would you like to talk about?
Yes, it feels weird to start with that because it was quite far down the process when I made that, because what we started with, I think, with that idea of color almost as a kind of currency that everyone can understand and that everyone has. Everyone's got blue, green, red, yellow, white, black. But then actually we have so much significance tied to it. There's so much baggage around each color that it was almost a journey of discovery to find out that, for me, yellow might mean happy, or it might mean ill, or it might mean cowardly. But in Vietnam, it means sad. And the yellow music, the sad music, is about sort of longing for your homeland. And so to kind of use color as a way into journey and sort of through your imagination into somebody else's world, it was a really fascinating journey. So we ended up, so the first part of the process before we got anywhere near doing collages, and even before we started writing, was that we talked to each other. So, well, in fact, even before that, we made a document, didn't we? And we both chose 5 colours, and then we described them to each other, what the personal significance of that might be, but what cultural significance. Wales is very much tied to the colour red, isn't it? It's what was the national colour of our rugby team, which is the national sport. And, we often see red in Wales. So there were lots of sort of cultural significances and meanings tied up to those colours that were completely alien to both of us. So it was really interesting having those conversations. So, for example, I remember having a really long conversation with Uyên about funerals and the color white being very significant in funerals in Vietnam, but obviously black is the color that we would associate with death and funerals in Wales. So just those sort of basic differences that are almost at the opposite ends of the spectrum, I found that really fascinating. So then obviously we went away, having written that document, then we shared lots of photographs and videos with each other, and it was really interesting. I'm sure, Uyên, you feel the same, but almost trying to see your own country through somebody else's eyes in order to explain it to them was a journey as well, wasn't it? Do you want to say something about that?
Yes, I think it was, and also my experience translating you is also very interesting as well, because I think it's the first time that I translated someone from English, but because a lot of lines that you write refer to the story that I told you. So for me, I felt like I did more composition in that translation than the other translation that I did, because it felt like it was my story as well. And so that crossing and in between is also something that I experienced for the first time. And also the research process is interesting as well, because there are stories that I read, on the newspaper, and then you also told me about that and your personal association with it. for example, the story about I think the Orbifen disaster, and your dad was part of the construction team that helped the people when they were when it happened. And so having that too, and also when I told you about the outside that all the girls were wearing in high school, and you can look it up on the internet, but I wore that for my high school graduation as well. So when I was translating that line, it felt like a part of us were in there, like me and my high school friends were in there as well.
Yeah, but I think I brought my own interpretation to that, because I was like, oh my God, you had to wear white as a teenage. How did you keep it clean? How, was this because you said that in some schools still it's the uniform, like you have to wear it, and years back.
Yeah, for some school, right, in the middle of the country. For me, I just wore it for the graduation ceremony. So that's only one day. My mom made it tailor. We got it tailored only for that one day, and I never wore it again. But yes, if we wear it every day, it would be very inconvenient.
Yeah, well, to me that just seemed like a really limiting thing, kind of as a woman, from a female perspective, bringing that kind of feminist perspective, just how limiting that must have been.
Yeah. But it's very interesting, because usually when people talk about outside, because it's the traditional Vietnamese costume, people would think about the beauty of it and commenting on how beautiful the girls look. But it's interesting that your perspective, obviously as a mom, you think about comfort.
Yeah.
And
how would I launder it? Yeah. How would I keep it clean? So yeah, so then we wrote poems. We went away separately after we'd had these fascinating conversations, and we sent each other stuff, and we had music to listen to, and then we wrote poems, and then we read them to each other, and we weren't sure where to go from there. But I think we decided that taking it into more of an artistic arena would be something enjoyable and interesting to do. So I went away and made a collage, and Uyên, you made sort of like a mood board of photographs that you had, and things that you found as well. So it's kind of like a found mood board. And then one of the other things that I really wanted to do, because I've always wanted to do it, is to paint the words to make a colour poem, because I know you're coming on to this, Nikki. Shall I talk about synesthesia now? I don't want to mess your schedule up. But I have a neurodiversity called synesthesia. So it's like a cross-wiring of colour in my brain, which to me, language is kind of like a spider web anyway, I'm sure everybody else feels the same. It's not just a single word in isolation. You've got all these other meanings, all these other words connected to every word. So you've got this network. But for me, there's colour in there as well. So every word has, I suppose not even a word, every letter of the alphabet has a colour, right. And then that will bleed into the words that I use. So my name, Rae, is green because the letter R is green. Uyên name is a sort of bronzy colour. Nikki's name is brown, and Sarah's name is yellow, and that's just the way it is. But interesting, from what Sarah was saying earlier, right and left are the same colours. Left is blue, right is red. So there you go. Maybe there is something in it. But I've never really translated that into art before, even though I've always had it and I've always known I've got it. So this was a first for me. So I did that first. I painted it first. I went through Uyên poem and I translated her poem into colour. And then Uyên said, will you write down what you did? Will you tell me which word is which so I can read it? So I scanned it, printed it, wrote on it. And I couldn't go back and do it very accurately. So you can see I've crossed some words out. It really took me a long time to retranslate it, which shows you just how inconvenient and unreliable synesthesia is as a memory aid. But yeah, I really enjoyed doing it. It's not something I've ever done before, but I think it's interesting to see it. And I think it's a pale shadow really of what actually happens, because it's all quite 3D and dynamic. Because it's
yeah, when I was looking at the painting, I can see what you said about letter as well, because for example, sky and sea and step kind of have the same shade of yellow because the letter S, I think.
Yes.
Yeah, so I can see it. And also the brown too, with the I think brown, it's probably has something to do with the letter G, right?
Brown is everywhere. I was talking to someone else who has synesthesia, who said that she thinks maybe it's because the older we get and the more experiences we get, it's almost like our colours get muddied up. because all the colors mixed together makes brown. So I don't know if it's that or what, but there is a lot of, I think B, D, M, N are brown for me. So they yeah, like building I can see there, but yeah, me, drifting, before, there's lots of words in there that have brown in them because of that. There's no rhyme or reason to it. And then my sister's name should be Pink, but it's actually yellow, just because I think she's quite a yellow, sunny person. So there's no real rhyme or reason to it. It's got its idiosyncrasies. But it was really great. I'm so glad that I was able to do this process. The whole thing has just been a really interesting, reiterative process of translation and then reworking, and even the collage, cutting things up, sticking them down, trying to make a new meaning come from something that you've already done. It's the first time really that I've done that and really concentrated on one piece of work and reworking it and reworking it. And
when you also did a visual response to Rae's poem that we can see here.
Yes, so I was reading her poem and kind of took visual notes. So instead of words, I use color and patterns to read it and kind of go into it and understand or remember it. And so I think my process is also as muddy as Rae described with her process, because if I look at it now, I cannot remember everything that I associate, like all the association that I made when I was painting it. But I can remember some of it. So for example, the background color is blue because we talk about Sangzachoy, the blue color. And in direct translation, that word Sangzachoy is the skin of the sky. When we say it, so the sky's color is blue for us. So the way we call it the blue color is the sky, the skin of the sky. And so she wrote that line in her poem, and that's why the blue color is the background. And I mixed between brown and orange to represent the fox and the woodpecker in her poem. So that's why the kind of the second layer, which kind of dominates the poem, is the image of the woodpecker and the fox. And some other images, for example, we talk about the outside line, the girls wearing being uncomfortable in the white dresses, which is the image that you can see on it's my right. You can see it on the right. Yes. So that is because of that line. And also the red kind of represent the hunger theme in her poem, because she mentioned the word starving a lot. And I think also I also work a lot with that theme when we were talking during one of our past conversation. Rae mentioned that the red color kind of personally means for her sacrifice, or war. Culturally, it might mean war in Welsh, and so there's that red line in there. So I remember some association, but not everything.
Perhaps we should hear the poem we've been hearing about now. Rae, would you be so kind as to read?
Yeah, sure.
I'll scroll back if you want it on the screen.
Okay. To visit Vietnam, take one-eye fox, one-eye woodpecker. With your fox eye, climb steps of green water, meadow slices, simmering rice, pale waterbirds, steam clouds. Water is edged, kept in, rimmed, but every tree is infinite. Fox knows the smell of rust in soil, history's orange vine, a toxic upgrowing. War's old arms twisting around the trunk. It's code in the earth, it's code in your body, it's code in your future. It cannot be forgotten, it laces your children. Fox is the dig and burn. Also, you must learn the silence in each word, the stopped voice. Alter the space, alter everything. See how quiet flowers spill out of pots, smudging corners, lines, curbs, gutters, dividers, white lines, quaysides, the moped's tire print, stifled under peach blossom. You can buy a branch to bring home. Now with your woodpecker eye, look for the dragon, the spine, a long S, a sinew of yellow music, calling you back. Vietnam is starved of itself. Yes, they're starving us, sing the trees, people, birds, flowers, dragons, girls. Woodpecker is a whole language, needles of drum beats. That's Vietnamese grubbing in trees, drumming, singing yellowly to itself to come home. Woodpecker pecks at every tall building in Hanoi, sounding for the weak point where nourishment hides. Too much noise to hear its echoes in the white glass. And there down the pearl string of cities, girls in white dresses like cloves of garlic in their skins, too tight, no room for the gorgeous stink to come out. How can they be themselves, starving in a bland dish? Blue equals sad, equals yellow, equals happy, equals blue. So many colors under the sky's skin. Pink is basic, blue is basic, orange is basic, black is basic. What a day for a death. Look at the skin of sky, innocent as a blue-green eye, green-blue. Everybody has sky, has ocean. But look here, white sand touches the black lake's lid. Black-white is the erasure, white-black. What's hard to talk about? Black sucks in the sunlight. Black is all the colors together. Don't forget, water is kept in its walls. The shore, the quay, the river, the rice fields, the rain pipe. Woodpecker hasn't died yet. But later we will all wear our white headbands and go to the funeral of the Vietnamese language, mother and father tongue. We will weigh the coffin. What does a whole tongue weigh? Heart language, root language, home language. Stick the little stops together. What's left is silence. Can water fight? Can water struggle? Can water spill over the straight road? Can water dig and burn? Can water drum a hole in a wall? Can water change the shape of rock? Thinking of funerals makes me so tired. Everybody will pay to have a song sung about the time they laughed together in Vietnamese. But look into their faces, fox eye, woodpecker eye. At the center of each iris, we all have the same water, the same black coil.
Thanks for that. It really resonates with, I know it's about Vietnam, but it really resonates with Wales and the Welsh language as well. I feel it's a poem that speaks to both countries in a way. When would you now read your poem, which
Yes.
is about Wales, but also
Yes.
mentioned earlier, personal, and includes all the colours in Welsh.
Yes.
Do you want me to share the screen? And
yes, you can share. So my poem is called Tiếng Đất Lạ, and the English translation is Voice or Sound from a Stranger's Land. Tiếng đất lạ. Tôi tìm trong Ekenrad một cánh cửa glass, một lòng hồ Fort, một tiếng thở. Chân tay đưa trước tên gọi, cỏ khói cuộn quanh ra, trôi ngôn ngữ xa lạ, ký ức thân thuộc, trôi khoảnh khắc âm thanh. Quen tôi, rest tôi, mở tôi mắt, rừng rưng cây sồi già, chảy thời gian chảy, đổ xuống bóng khô tôi. Orange phủ tràn mái tóc thu, trên ngực bảng gỗ EN English Note, giữa khu vườn bưởi trơ trụi, người tôi thấy nhau, nhìn nhau. Sau lưng tôi tòa nhà đã mất điện, trên đầu người vô vàn sao răng. Tôi bước. They say come eat the melon, the melons have been harvested. Họ nói lại đây ăn đi, bưởi họ thu hoạch đã chín rồi. Họ nói lại đây ăn đi, bưởi đã chín. Họ nói lại đây ăn bưởi đi. Họ nói lại đây ăn đi. Họ nói lại đây. Họ nói lại. Thân cây rướng máu, gai bàn tay tôi, đầu gối gập, ngực, đất, danh từ, tài sản, di sản, nghĩa địa, tính từ, no, khi. động từ nhớ, nước, trạng từ ngôi làng, tiếng gào đã chìm. Barstones, người khắc lên thìa gỗ trao tôi. Thơ nhẫn nại, xoa một bụng ấm. Trang giấy nhẫn nại, crush tôi. Pilipala, bướm bướm bay. Pilipala, bướm bướm bay. Tím, cam, vàng, trắng, xanh, cựa quậy.
Fantastic, lovely, diolch, thank you. I was thinking about the colours, and we discussed some of the colours earlier, and is it right about there's something special about blue in Vietnamese?
Blue, we talk about the word xanh, which means it. When you say xanh in Vietnamese, it can mean both green or blue, so you have to specify. So xanh da trời, skin of sky, is the blue color, or sometimes we say xanh nước biển too. So nước biển is the sea's water. And if you say xanh lá cây, so lá cây means leaf, so leaves on tree. So if you say xanh lá cây, then it means the green color. And so xanh is the word that means all the shapes, different shapes of green and blue.
And we have the same thing in the Welsh language with the word glass, which, yeah, way back, there wasn't a word for green, gwerth. We heard the word gwerth, the feminine version of green in your poem. So blue, glass is also means green in Welsh, like glas wellt. The bluegrass is green grass, and other verses. And this is something you looked into a bit, Sarah, with your research around the subject.
Yeah.
What you found?
I often mishear things and go off in a direction, but this time there really was no excuse. I saw an email by Uyên saying that you were trying to understand how Welsh people respond to colour, and I hadn't realised all this was going on. I thought you were just generally like asking, so I went off and did all this research and wrote my own big poem, which is I'm then going to have to work more on. But yeah, one of the things that I put on Twitter to a lot of the Welsh people on Twitter, sort of saying, how do we respond to colour, folks, and what can we think about? And the main poem that I could think about myself was mentioned, and it's just called Glass, which just means blue. And it's this really gorgeous poem where they're sitting down in the Mumbles and they're looking at the sea, and there's a line in it about drinking the blueness. And that word, glesni, is actually my favourite word and favourite name for a girl as well. It's actually a girl's name, very popular girl's name. And there was a girl in my school called Glesni. And and then I had looked into lots of other things. I realised that actually blue, as well as being my sort of favourite colour of the spectrum now because of my depigmentation, is actually permeates a lot of Welsh culture. There does seem to be an awful lot of blue in things that are culturally Welsh rather than things that have been done to us or other things like that. There does seem to be a lot of blue in poetry and things like that. And I'd looked at the sort of blue grass when blue isn't blue and things like that. I'd sort of had that in my little poem thing that I started writing. And I noticed they've taken a couple of lines and put it in the booklets. They have put some of that in. And then I discovered that the person who is the poet laureate, Ifor ap Glyn, had worked a while ago with Eleanor Wynne Reynolds. They had actually been commissioned to write a whole book about colours in Welsh. They'd written all these poems responding different ways personally for them, rather than like trying to look at Welshness and colour. So I think, I mean, this is the sort of stuff that I've never thought about because I am so solipsistic and everything so far has been all about me and sort of just around my surroundings. So it was quite exciting to sort of look out and sort of think in the wider culture, how do I relate to Welsh culture and colour in Welsh culture? But then I discovered actually I was sort of invading a project that was already going on. And I can't even claim that I've misheard it because it was written down. I just obviously hadn't read it properly. It's just something to do with the way that I respond to the way things are written or something. So yeah, so it's been a really interesting then watching your project and thinking more about, and it's something I'm going to probably follow up as well now look more into colours and things, because I am a very visual person, because I am losing my hearing, and I'm from a deaf hearing family where a lot of stuff was just visual. And so colours and things are really important, and they're becoming increasingly important in terms of the way I present myself, because obviously I'm so pale now and my hair's so white. Yeah, so it's really interesting watching your projects and then looking at Welsh culture in a different way. It's just not something I've ever really thought about before, so it's been really interesting.
That's lovely to hear, and that all of you mentioned moving on with different things, developing, still got things to work on. Yeah, and it's been fascinating to see the work develop, and lovely to see the publication, which is online on the Notion site, or it will be once this conversation is released to the world. So we're out of time for today, but I'd like to say diolch yn fawr iawn. Thank you very much to the three of you for taking part today and for your work in the project, and I'm glad you enjoyed it. And also to thank our sponsors, the British Council, for supporting the project.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone.
Diolch.